So I think we could say that knowing your values, defining them, is the icing on the cake. Man, when I saw that for the first time, I was like, yes, that's it. That's it.
Maybe you are a good samba dancer. Maybe you do play football well or soccer.
Yeah, it's a secret that I've been keeping from everybody,
So in today's episode, we are looking forward to shifting over to talk about mindset. And in fact, mindset is at the center of our teaching methodology, the Real Life Way. And the reason for that is because it's just something that is so fundamental in making everything else better, right? And in particular, within mindset, we're going to look at values. So what we're hoping to do is to help you to get more insight into what are the values that you already have, that you identify as being your values, because each of us have different values, right? And that you live by, because if you're able to identify those and kind of augment their place in your life, it makes everything so much better. It makes everything so much more effective. It means that you can be aligned with those values and be making a bigger impact on yourself, on your life, on the world, of course. And finally, values are something that are super important because they're like a set of glasses, say, that you are wearing, that you put on, and it's kind of, you're seeing the world through those lenses. If any of us have ever put on a friend's glasses, that it's like everything goes blurry, right? So, if maybe you're living your life by not the best values, then you might see the world in a negative way. You might be very pessimistic. You might not believe in yourself. But if you're able to adopt values or strengthen values that you do have, but maybe you're not living by, then you'll start seeing the world in a brighter light, and it will allow you to make better decisions and so on.
By the way, if my listening skills are not failing me right now, did you say augment?
Augment, yeah.
Wow.
Augment is to increase something.
So Ethan, getting back to this talk about values, so I think we could say that knowing your values, defining them, is the icing on the cake for many of us.
Ooh.
Wouldn't you agree?
It's a very nice expression. What does it mean if something is the icing on the cake?
Yeah, when you take something good and you improve it, you make it better. Just like a cake. Mm-hmm. Imagine a cake is already great and delicious, but the icing is the thing that you put on top of it and around it to make it even more delicious or even more appealing or tasty. So yeah, the icing on the cake, like you take something good and make it even better.
Before we get started, we wanted to let you know that if you are new here, maybe this is the first video podcast that you're watching, or you just simply have not gotten to hitting that red button below, be sure to do it, because every week we make lessons like this. You're learning a lot of vocabulary like we've already been looking at, and you get to upgrade your life by doing things like identifying and getting more aligned with your values. So you can go from being a lost, insecure English learner to become a confident, natural English speaker. So we look forward to having you join our quickly growing community. And that said, Thiago, let's get into my big question for you of the day, which is, what is one core value that you hold dear, and how has it influenced your life decisions and actions?
For me, Ethan, one of my core values is definitely resilience. And before I talk about that, let me just quickly define how I view resilience. Resilience for me is about how effectively you handle challenges, obstacles, adversity in life. Because, we all have problems. We all have obstacles. Yeah, we have bumps on the road. Yeah, nobody's life is 100% smooth. But how you deal with those bumps, how you deal with those challenges, the more resilient you are, the better you tend to deal or cope with those challenges.
What does cope mean?
Deal with could be a synonym. You cope with a situation, you deal with it, you handle it. Yeah. Another part of the definition that I like to think about is also, I find, in my opinion, resilient people tend to recover more quickly as well from setbacks.
Very true.
We all have setbacks in our lives sometimes. Sometimes you are, feeling like you are progressing in life, you are, doing well. And then something happens that either stops that progress for a moment, or maybe even forces you to take one or two steps back, or gets you down a little bit. Yeah. So I find that the more resilient you are as a person, the quicker you recover, the quicker you get back on the horse, you get back on track and keep moving forward. So for me, that is definitely one of my core values. And I think it's a value that has served me very well in my life professionally speaking, personally speaking. But one example I can give here to make it more concrete is learning English, because I think by now it's not a secret anymore that I learned English in Brazil, here in my home country. I've never been abroad. And back then, 20 years ago when I started, I could have given, or I could have told myself maybe dozens of excuses not to learn English. Oh, I didn't have enough money to buy a course, I couldn't hire a teacher, or I didn't have enough money to travel. So I could have told myself many things not to learn English. But instead of that, I decided to take another path, which was the path of, okay, I want to learn this language. I think it's going to be important for me. It's going to be good for me. I want to do it. Let me do it. Yeah. Let me find a way to learn this language, given my circumstances, my resources at that time. And then I thought, it might be more challenging for me or more difficult than for somebody else who has more resources, but that's okay. Or it might take me longer. Maybe somebody else with more resources could do it in 3 years or 2 years. But, my mindset at that time was, even if I took 10 years, I don't care, because eventually I'm going to get there to my goal. So this is an example of resilience. I think that if I hadn't been resilient enough back then, I wouldn't have learned English the way I learned, and I wouldn't be using English nowadays the way I use for work and for life. That actually reminds me of a really nice clip from The Pursuit of Happiness. Have you seen that movie, The Pursuit of Happiness, with Will Smith?
I have. It's a great one. In fact, we even have a lesson with it. It's one of our most popular lessons on Learn Through a TV series of all time, which we can link down in the description if you're watching this on YouTube, or in the show notes if you're just listening to the audio to check out.
There is a really cool scene. I don't know if you remember when he walks in the interview for the internship program he's applying for, and he's all covered in paint because he had an incident with his apartment the night before. So he was clearly not dressed appropriately. And looking at the interview, watching the interview, it was clear that he didn't have the qualifications necessary for that position, right? But then he says something really nice in that scene that really, I think it defines very well also what we mean, or what I mean by resilience. Actually, we have the clip here, so if T could play for us so that we can listen to it or watch, that'd be nice.
Can I say something? I'm the type of person, if you ask me a question and I don't know the answer, I'm gonna tell you that I don't know. But I bet you what, I know how to find the answer, and I will find the answer.
Man, when I saw that for the first time, I was like, yes, that's it. That's it. Because, and that's how I operate, or I have operated most of my life, I never let these things kind of bring me down. Hey, I'm going to tell you I don't know, but I will find the answer. I will find a way to get the job done or to be successful at this or that thing, right? So, and I think that this is also, it shows how confident you are in yourself as well. Because, if you believe in yourself, if you are confident enough, you will, be in that position more often, hey, I don't know, but hey, I can do it. You see, you trust yourself enough to say, I can do it. I can learn this, okay? So yeah, resilience is definitely really important to me. And if there is one thing that I want my kids to learn from me, my two kids, my son and my daughter, is that, I want them to be resilient people as well, to develop that tough skin, and to go for what they want in life, not, giving excuses or pointing fingers, to justify maybe their failures. I don't want them to do that. So
I think for being successful at anything, English is a great example. Resilience is crucial. I actually took some notes because it reminded me of some things when you were discussing that. There's a great quote that says something along the lines that wind extinguishes a candle, but it fans a fire. So what this basically is comparing is that, when you have adversity is the wind. So if there's a gust of wind, we might say, so some wind blowing, it would put out a candle, right? A candle's weak. But a fire, it can cause like a wildfire, right? It can cause just like this huge, powerful thing. So the difference between someone who's resilient and someone who's not resilient, the not resilient person would be like the candle, right? They're going to be thrown into adversity, and they'll just go out there to say, I can't do it. It's too big of a challenge for me. I don't have the skills. I'm not naturally talented. I don't have the money. I don't have this and that other thing that would make it more ideal, right, for me. And this is very much like growth mindset that we talk about a lot. People who lean into it saying, I can do it as long as I work hard at it, right? That's more like the person who's going to be like the fire, and maybe you're even the case that wind blows and it pushes you. There's people you tell them that they can't, and they're going to find a way. They're going to go at it forever, until they actually make it. So it's really something that if you don't have that already, you need to cultivate it. You need to just work on your self-talk, even of catching yourself. If you're saying like, I can't do this, it's too hard. I don't have the talents. I don't have the skills. I don't have the money, and so on, to shift that to say like, I can't do it yet. And finally, there's a really great image, actually, maybe T can show it here, that this reminded me of, that's expectations versus reality. And it shows like a biker, the expectation being that he's going to his goal, right? And it's like a straight line. But then the reality is it's all these ups and downs. There's canyons, there's lakes, there's bridges that have to be crossed, there's mountains that have to be climbed, right? So it tends to be when we have a goal or something, we think like, oh, it's going to be this clear path and everything. But life always throws at us obstacles, right? So those were two things that I thought of. And
amazing.
That scene, it was like less than 20 seconds. But if there weren't subtitles there, I think most learners would have a lot of difficulty understanding Will Smith, because he uses so much connected speech there. So I took notice of some of this. I thought we could actually just maybe step aside from values for just a moment. And I wanted to challenge you guys to actually try to mimic these entire 15 seconds exactly like Will Smith says them, because it's just, even if you're not interested in sounding like a native speaker, it's going to help you a lot with your listening. So let's see, I have here the text. So he starts out by saying, can I say something?
Can I say something?
But he doesn't say, can I say something, which is how most people learn how to say it in school, right? But he reduces can to kin. This is something that we natives do all the time, right? Kin. And it links to the I, and I links to say. So can I say something? Can I say something?
Can I say something?
Exactly. And then I'm the type of person. Here we have schwa. We've talked a lot about the schwa as well, that this is the most common sound at least in American English. And it's this We use it all the time. So in school, you probably learn to say the, but usually we'll reduce the to the. I'm the type of person. So we have another one there, the V gets dropped, and we also just pronounce it as a schwa, and that all links together. I'm the type of person.
I'm the type of person.
You got it. Going back to the scene, so Will Smith says, if you ask me a question. But there's, again, a lot of connected speech in this line. If you, so you, oftentimes we natives will reduce that to ya or ya, as he does here. So he says, if ya, ask me again, we have the schwa there, a. Instead of saying a, we'll often say and then question. If ya, ask me a question.
If you ask me a question.
You got it. And I don't know the answer. So again, this he reduced a lot. So and, oftentimes we'll say it that way, but oftentimes we just say an or un. So he says there an, and it links to the I, and I. And then don't. We have a T at the end there. Usually when we have this NT at the end of words, we'll pronounce that T as what's called a glottal T. It's a sound that's cut off at the back we cut the T off at the back of our throat, right? So it's like a. And so instead of saying don't, which a lot of learners I hear say don't or can't or isn't, we don't say that strong T in American English. We'll say don't, can't, isn't, right? Mm-hmm. So he links all those three words together. And I don't, and I don't, and I don't. Again, we have a the here that's reduced to the, and that links to no. And I don't know the answer.
And I don't know the answer. The answer.
Exactly. Okay, we have here, I'm going to tell you that I don't know.
I'm going to tell you that I don't know.
Which, of course, he doesn't say it like that. We have going to. Most learners know that becomes gonna, right? So, and he reduces it even more. Oftentimes, gonna will reduce to anna. So he says, instead of saying I'm going to, he says, I'm gonna. And also, like, again, there, the you reduces and links to tell. So it's tell you. That I, we have an American T there. When we have a T in American English between two vowel sounds, so here between a and an I, it usually changes to a d sound. So instead of being that I, it's that I. Don't, again, with the glottal T there. No. I'm going to tell you that I don't know.
I'm going to tell you that I don't know.
You got it. Okay, and then, but I bet you what, he says. Which, by the way, what does it mean if I say I bet you what?
Like placing a bet, like, you are willing to bet your money, to put your money on the table and say, hey, I can do this. And if I can't, you can take my money away. Yeah.
Exactly. So he says, but I bet you what?
But I bet you what?
He says as but I, so we have an American T there. And then something really interesting that happens here is oftentimes when we have a T plus a Y in American English, we change it. It morphs into a ch sound. Same actually happens if you have a D plus a Y, it morphs into a j sound. So bet you becomes bet you. And you'll hear people say this a lot, like bet you or betcha, and what? Bet you what? Bet you what? So here he says, but I bet you what?
But I bet you what?
I know how to find the answer.
I know how to find the answer.
So here we have the to reduces to a schwa sound, so it becomes ta. But then because it's a T between two vowel sounds, between the and the ow of how, it becomes howda, howda. I know how to find the answer. So the other thing that happens there is he drops the D on find. And this is probably because oftentimes when you have a D and a T following each other, you might drop one of them. So he says find the, actually, I think here he emphasizes, so he says find the answer. I know how to find the answer.
I know how to find the answer.
And finally, this one has hardly any connected speech because he's being very emphatic. So when we want to be emphatic, oftentimes we'll deliberately not use connected speech, right? So he says, and I, so we do have connected speech there, which we saw before, and I, but then in every other word, he says pretty emphatically, and I will find the answer.
And I will find the answer.
Can I say something? I'm the type of person, if you ask me a question and I don't know the answer, I'm going to tell you that I don't know. But I bet you what? I know how to find the answer, and I will find the answer.
So again, I want to challenge you, dear listener, dear viewer, to, watch the entire scene again and try to mimic Will Smith. Try to say it exactly as he did. So we gave you kind of the piece by piece there. If you're watching the video on YouTube, it'll help too, because you'll be able to see there the connected speech. But doing that, I promise you, if you do that a few times and you're able to get it really down how he says it, it's going to help you so much to understand fast-speaking natives, right? And speaking of understanding fast-speaking natives and even feeling more resilient when you're learning English, I highly recommend that you check out the Real Life English app, because you get an interactive transcript for the podcast. So you'll be able to follow along as we're speaking and everything and see how we're pronouncing things. You get to see all of the most important vocabulary as well. And you get vocabulary flashcards so you never forget the new words that you're learning. And of course, you can go have conversations with people from all around the world, so you practice everything that you're learning anytime, anywhere. So check it out. It's absolutely free to download. Just look for Real Life English in your favorite app store, and we look forward to seeing you there.
All right, Ethan. So I've shared one of my core values. What about you? I'm curious to know, what is one core value that you have, and how has it influenced your life and your decisions up until now?
Yeah, so I put some reflection into this as we were preparing for this lesson. And one that's really near and dear to my heart is global citizenship, which actually global citizenship is, I think, a package really of different values and everything. But our vision here at Real Life English is to create a world beyond borders. And obviously I'm one of the co-founders, so I helped to come up with this vision. And that doesn't mean create a world without borders. We're not trying to, break down and have like a world where anyone can go anywhere. That might be nice at some point, not need to worry about passports and visas and so on. But when we say beyond borders, what we really mean is that we're not limited by our borders. We're not limited by our culture. We're not limited by the way of thinking in our part of the world. We're able to open our minds to be able to speak with anyone from anywhere And I think the big thing here in being a global citizen is instead of being judgmental, you're curious. So when you're having a conversation with someone from another country, they're doing something very strange that's different from how the people do it in your part of the world. Instead of judging them, you recognize that the way that I do things, the way that my culture perceives the world isn't the right way. It's just one way of doing it. And the way that this other person does it, as long as it's not harming anyone, is also perfectly valid. We all come out of these different traditions, these different value systems, these different maybe religions or beliefs. So it's really opening yourself up and being curious, and instead of judging, asking questions, really trying to put yourself in the other person's shoes, really trying to understand how they see the world. And that's something that I think is immensely challenging. So it's a value I hold, but it's something that I'm always working at, because it's very easy to judge people. It's very easy to just go by your stereotypes, or the stereotypes you've been hearing all your life about it. To imagine that Thiago is an excellent samba dancer. He plays football like Neymar, and he has a pet monkey, of course. But obviously, like, none of those things are true. Well, not obviously. Maybe you are a good samba dancer. Maybe you do play football well, or soccer.
Yeah, it's a secret that I've been keeping from everybody.
So coming back to this, there's a quote that we like to use all the time here, which is, no matter what divides us, that which unites us is far greater. And what this means is that, as human beings, as, being this same animal that has all these same fundamental problems and desires, if you have kids, ultimately you just want the best thing for your kids, no matter where you're from. All of us want to be successful in our lives. All of us want to feel like we matter. All of us want to feel loved. All of us want to spend time with our friends and have meaningful relationships, and so on. All these things that connect us as human beings, they're so much more important than all the superficial things that make us different depending where we come from, like, religion, traditions, and so on. So if I had to say one core idea here, I'd say that the big thing is being willing to lean into the discomfort that you feel when someone has a different worldview from you. So in other words, could say stepping outside of your comfort zone and really being willing to challenge your assumptions.
I really like that. It's so beautiful. And it's about going deeper, right? Because yes, maybe superficially speaking, we are different, right? Different countries, different cultures, even, the looks, right? But if you dig a little bit deeper, you will see that there are some fundamental truths that everybody on earth, every human being on earth shares, like, those examples you gave, right? So being able to get past that initial barrier and realize that, hey, we actually have more in common than we think, or than I thought.
It allows you to start seeing that it's really fascinating, actually, all the different ways of operating and seeing the world and so on. So if you're able to, get off of your high horse, as we might say, stop being judgmental of people, stop thinking that yours is the ultimate truth, and so on. It allows you to get to have more fun with it, to be curious, to learn different ways of doing things, and so on. And that's one of the really beautiful things about being able to speak English, is it allows you to open yourself up to all these different ways of seeing the world, all these different realities. This whole conversation about stepping outside of your comfort zone, it really reminds me of one of my favorite movies, which is called Into the Wild. So we prepared a clip from that as well. I'll just, in case any of you aren't familiar with this movie, in a nutshell, it's about a guy who is graduating college. He has parents who have these expectations that he should get a really good job, be a doctor or a lawyer or something like that. But he kind of rebels against that. He just sees all of this as being kind of consumist, capitalist culture. And he's wanting to go out and have an adventure. He takes his car out to the desert. He burns it. He gives away all of his money. Like he's just completely breaking himself away from society. He changes his name. His name's Chris, but he changes his name to Alexander Supertramp. And he's working towards a dream. He wants to go to Alaska and live out in the wilderness. But throughout the movie, and it's actually based on a book and a true story, he meets all these different people along his way who have different impacts on him. And it's like a lot of different beautiful stories that happen within this movie. So the scene that I chose is from, he's, I believe, in Arizona, staying with this older man who's a widower, which means his wife died. and he lives alone, and so they kind of cultivate got tongue tied there. They foster, or you could say, relationship, and so Alexander Supertramp, he's about to leave, but they go out outside together, and Ron says, what are you running from? What is the reason that you don't have this relationship anymore with your family, and that you're trying to go to Alaska? What are you running from? And Alexander turns it around on him and says, like, I know what you're running from. So that's what we're going to see. He challenges him to break out of his stagnant existence there that he's gotten into. But before we watch that clip, we wanted to give a very special thanks to one of our viewers, listeners, and app users, who also is named Thiago. So obviously it's not from you, Thiago, from a different Thiago, who is also from Brazil. So he even sent us in an audio reading his review. So let's roll it.
Hi everyone, I'm Thiago and I'm from Brazil. My favorite part of the app is the possibility to practice the language using podcasts to improve my level of comprehension. It's also the chance to talk to people all around the world in English. Before the app, my English was good, but I wasn't confident enough to talk to people in English. And now, my English is way better than I thought it was before this experience with real-life English. I love it. Oh, yeah.
All right, Thiago, thank you so much for the wonderful shout out and testimonial. And it's amazing to see that we share the same name.
If you want us to shout you out, then all you have to do is download the app. Again, it's free. And if you enjoy the experience, leave us a 5-star review so we can find you, and we can also give our thanks here on the podcast. All right, so now we're going to have Ice-T, who's here in the studio with us, roll that clip of Into the Wild.
You're gonna live a long time, Ron. You should make a radical change in your lifestyle. I mean, the core of man's spirit comes from new experiences. And there you are, stubborn old man, sitting on your butt.
Sitting on my butt?
Yeah.
Ha! I'll show you! Sitting on my butt! Stubborn old man.
That's a beautiful scene. Just to give the listeners here some visual context, so the young guy, Chris, his name, right? He's at the top of a hill, and the old guy, Ron, the elderly guy, he's at the bottom. And he actually climbs up. He actually climbs up the hill when he says, "I'll show you," yeah? And he goes up, and then he joins Supertramp on, up there, and then they sit together, have a nice chat. Yeah, that is such a beautiful scene.
Yeah, I highly recommend that if you haven't watched it yet to check it out, because it's the whole movie is just like so inspiring. But the reason I chose this scene in particular is because I love this quote that he says, "The core of man's spirit comes from new experiences," which I think is really everything that we're talking about stepping outside of your comfort zone, and experiencing new things, meeting new people from other places and so on. Just like he does, he's just in the States, but he's still, the States, it's a big country, is able to meet all these really different people who teach him different things. So what does that mean, by the way, if you say that the core of something, the core of man's spirit?
Let's say maybe the main part of something. Yeah, the main part of something is the core, the fundamental thing, quality, or truth, let's say.
And he calls him a stubborn old man, I think, something like that, right? What does it mean if someone is stubborn?
If you are stubborn, you are stuck in your ways, and it's very hard to change your mind, to change your opinion, and that's actually, it's usually used in a negative way. Yeah, this word